Hello, it's Dawn Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we would get together and just have a little chat. I am not going to be showing anything because right now I'm a bit of a hot mess. My office is a bit of a hot mess. If you can see the hot mess behind me, which I didn't even bother to clean up for this video. And I would say my life is a little bit of a hot mess, but like that's only kind of true because that makes it sound like it's a bad thing, and it's not really. My life is in this sort of weird creative chaos right now. That like honestly is a bit of a hot mess, but like that's cool. I'm fine with the creative hot mess. I'm actually fine with the hot mess that's behind me right now. Like I'll get to it. It's not a big deal. But what I wanted to come on and talk about today is tarot burnout. Like, okay, we're gonna talk about like burnout in general, because burnout is a thing, and tarot burnout is definitely a thing. So I've done other videos talking about like tarot overwhelm, right? I did one a couple months ago talking about tarot overwhelm, and you know, some of the things that I do to kind of combat that. And today I thought we would talk about tarot burnout because that's actually a different thing. I get burnout a lot in a lot of different areas of my life because I'm like full on all the time, right? I'm always doing, I'm always creating, I'm writing, I'm playing, I'm drawing, like all these things, right? So like, and that's on top of my tarot work that I do, like my personal growth tarot work that I do. Like all of that other stuff exists on top of that. And so sometimes it is a lot, right? Like it's full on a lot. I also have the membership where I do, well, this year we're doing the whole tarot adventure. That's like the, it's not a D&D game. It is inspired by D&D. So it is a tarot adventure using tarot cards that is loosely inspired by the narrative-driven story of a D&D campaign. And we do incorporate dice and stuff into it for people who want to. So like that's a whole thing that's happening, which is so much fun. I'm totally enjoying it. My tarot burnout really doesn't apply to that because doing that adventure has been a really fun thing. Doing it with my members and participating in our Discord as well has been really fun. And so when I'm talking about tarot burnout, I'm not really talking about that specific practice. I'm talking about like, or really any specific practice. I'm talking about just tarot in general, right? And this is different, I think, than like tarot overwhelm. Can you see like all the decks? Like you can't even see because now I've got a chair in here. I'm on the wrong side. I've got a chair in here now and I'm trying to like make space for it for some gaming stuff that I'm doing on my other channel. I've got like just decks piled up everywhere now. There are decks in boxes on the floor that I haven't even opened yet. Like that's tarot overwhelm, right? And I'm gonna get like real into freaking semantics here. But that to me is tarot overwhelm. Like you've just got like a ton of decks laying around everywhere. That is totally my life right now. But that's actually not an overwhelming thing for me, other than I look at it and go, man, I really need to organize, right? I really need to go through my spreadsheets. I need to organize my decks. I need to figure out, you know, what I'm keeping, what's time to move on, and all that good stuff, right? So that'll probably be happening on my channel over the next, you know, let's just say over the next year, because I really don't have plans for when I'm going to do that. It's more of a kind of like, I feel like doing it right now. Also, I just like personally got over allergic reaction. And so it's taken me a couple weeks to recover from that. So like getting into stuff right now is just not a great idea for me in general. So that's all just going to stay and chill and hang out, and that's fine. So that for me in the past has kind of been a part of the tarot overwhelm thing. But to me, that's a different kind of energy than tarot burnout. Tarot overwhelm is like, I still really want to engage with all of this stuff, right? I still really want to engage with my decks, and I want to do the readings, and I want to like journal and do all the things, right? But I'm just like overwhelmed by the sheer amount of maybe things I want to do, or the sheer amount of decks I have, or whatever the case may be, right? So where I'm at right now, or where I have been for the last few weeks, is actually more in tarot burnout mode. So right now I'm kind of like in this space where I just like needed to take a step back from all the different practices that I was doing. And I kind of touched upon this in my like decks I want to work with for 2024 video, I think that I did. I touched upon it a little bit where I talked about how I wanted to slow down. I wanted to like do less, focus more. Big focus, as I mentioned, is the tarot journey, the fellowship that we're doing in my membership. So that's like my big tarot focus. But I'm also having tarot burnout around the fact that like I don't want a tarot right now. And I don't see people talk about that very often, but I feel like it does happen, right? It can't just be me. It can't just be me. Also, I've been reading tarot for a couple of decades now. Sounds really, really funny to say that, but I've been reading tarot for a couple of decades now. And this is not the first time that I've experienced tarot burnout. It's not so much an overwhelm as it is just like, I just need a break, right? I just need a break from all the personal growth work, all the deep reflective sort of energies and work and stuff that we do in this space. And I think that's a valid feeling. I think that's a valid experience. And I think a lot of us probably go through it, but very few people talk about it, or at least I don't see people talk about it very often, because like it seems counterintuitive to come onto a tarot channel and go like, hey y'all, I don't want to do tarot right now, right? That sounds awful. But that is the reality of my situation right now. And if there's one thing that I definitely try to do with my channel is to be completely authentic in my experiences and what's going on, in my tarot practice. Definitely more so in my membership, because they get kind of the raw, unedited, this hot mess of a thing that happens quite frequently in my membership. But I wanted to talk about it publicly too, because I think it's something that I don't see addressed a lot. And I think that there can also be a lot of shame around that. There's that, and some of the things that happen around that, some of the energies and the feelings around that sort of experience, there can be a lot of that shame because, we have all these decks, or like I have all these decks, like I should be using them. Like, it's cool, man. It can just sit here. It's not hurting anything. So, right, that's fine. That's a mindset that I have to work on, shifting in my own sense of self. But sometimes there can be shame around that. Sometimes it can feel a little bit like we're stepping back from tarot because I've bumped up against things and I'm like, ooh, that's a thing I'm not ready to deal with right now. So I will kind of back off from doing tarot. I will back off from doing those really deep self-reflective work because I'm not ready to engage with that yet. And again, I think that's valid. And I think it's important to recognize when that happens for myself, and so that I can work through that, right? I don't want to avoid it because obviously it's something that I need to deal with in order to be a more fully rounded me, right? I need to eventually address it. I need to eventually work through it. But if I'm not ready, I'm not ready. And that's okay. That's valid, right? And when I start to recognize that my tarot practice is just constantly bombarding me with something that I'm not in a space to be dealing with right now, I have a tendency to pull back from it. And I'm like, ooh, okay, no, that's getting a little close, hitting a little close to home. I just need to take a step back. So that's a valid sort of tarot burnout kind of energy too, I think, where it's like, I just can't with those things anymore, right? I just can't look at that shadow anymore. I just can't deal with that right now, or whatever the case may be. That's a little bit of burnout because it's like you've become so just inundated with it that you're just like, I'm full up, man. I'm full up. I can't anymore. And so like, I think that's a valid burnout scenario as well, and something I've definitely come across myself. The other thing that kind of happens, I think, a little bit with burnout too, is like I just get tired of doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that's a big reason of why I created the fellowship this year for my membership, because it is sort of gamified and it is fun, but we are doing like deep personal growth work as well with just that game layer over the top of it. And like for me personally, I just needed to do something different with my cards. I needed a different way to interact with them. I needed a different way to explore them. I needed a different way to engage with personal growth, because I've been walking this path for a really long time, and like I get to the point where I feel like I'm just doing the same things over and over again, and it starts to get repetitive and habitual rather than ritual, right? Where it's not good habit. It's just habit because I'm just going through the motions at this point. And I don't want my tarot practice to become like brushing my teeth, right? I want my tarot practice to remain this beautiful, empowering, fulfilling, yes, sometimes very, very challenging thing that I do to help me become a better person, to help me understand more of who I am and how I can go about being a better person in the world around me, and how I can go about being my authentic self. And I want my tarot practice to be an empowering tool on that journey, not something that just becomes, a habit that I do because it's comforting, and like there is some value to it just being a comforting thing, but like I don't want that to be the end all be all that it is. And that's where it started to go for me. I think that's where my tarot practice over the last, I don't know, six months. I mean, let's be honest, maybe even a year. Like, I feel like this has been a really slow roll thing that's been coming on for quite some time. I feel like that's kind of the space where I'm in, where my tarot practice has started to feel like brushing my teeth, where it's just this thing that I do because it's this thing that I do because it's a habit, because, I mean, it does bring me comfort and like all of those other things too, right? But also there is a part of it that I'm just going through the motions sometimes. And that's where the problem is. That's where I start sensing that burnout. Because if I'm just going through the motions, then I'm not really engaged with it in a way that's very helpful for me personally. So over the last month, really, end of last year, beginning into this year, I have been working through this process of tarot burnout, of not really wanting to engage with my cards much outside of the fellowship that I'm doing, of not engaging with my normal practices because I need a break. And I think that it's important to acknowledge when those periods happen and when we do need a break. And I think it's also really important to validate that it is a realistic thing that happens to a lot of us, and it's a completely normal thing, and there shouldn't be any guilt around it. Like, the fact that I'm even coming on and like saying, hey, I've been experiencing tarot burnout, and it's like this dirty little secret, right? That should not be a thing, right? I should not feel like it's a dirty little secret for me to say that, hey, y'all, I haven't touched a tarot deck in 3 days, right? Because that's fine, right? It's a thing that I do to help myself. It should never be an obligation. This whole thing is really like muddy when it's actually part of your job. But we're going to take that and set it aside for a minute, right? We're going to pretend like it's not my job, and that also doesn't lead into tarot burnout, because I'm very aware that that is a part of the piece of the puzzle for me personally, which is a very me thing, because most people aren't in this space that I'm in doing the things that I'm doing. So I'm just trying to look at this from my own personal tarot practice perspective. And so over the last few weeks, I've been, really struggling with the trying to want to engage with tarot beyond that one thing that I'm doing, beyond my membership. And, to get back to working in some of the studies that I want to do, working with it for, journaling and personal growth and my spiritual work and all of that kind of good stuff, which for the most part has been put on hold. And like, that's fine. We need breaks every once in a while. And I guess that's like the point that I'm trying to get to, is if anybody else is ever feeling in this tarot burnout where you're like, I just don't want to touch cards, like, that's okay. I think sometimes we need that space. It gives us time to reflect. It gives us time to breathe. It gives us time to maybe look at what we're currently doing versus, what we maybe want to start doing or make changes that we want to make moving forward. And I think that that's a really important thing to keep in mind, that that's a valid way of being and working with tarot. Sometimes you need a break. Sometimes you need to step back, because sometimes you can get so into the nitty-gritty weeds of it that you can't even see the bigger picture anymore. And I think a lot of tarot is getting into the nitty-gritty, right? We like to poke at the shadow, and we like to see like what's going on beneath, right? What's under the surface of that. A vast majority of us do, right? We use it as a personal growth tool. I think it's important to acknowledge that sometimes we need to like step back from that, because now we are so far into the weeds that we can no longer see the bigger picture of what it is that you're trying to do with this practice, right? Why are you engaging with the cards? Why are you coming to the tarot? And sometimes you can get so like focused in or just so bogged down by it all. Again, burnout, overwhelm, choose your word, whatever feeling fits. And sometimes when you get into that space, like the thing that you need to do is actually just step away for a minute. It's like, take a breath, take a breather. And like, that's a completely valid form of practice, right? Taking a break. It's that Four of Swords. Sometimes you need that Four of Swords energy where you're just going to step back, take a break, and then, you know, you'll be able to come back to it with kind of a fresh perspective. Hopefully, that's the goal, right? I'm not going to say I was in a Four of Swords moment because honestly, like, I just dumped all my creative energies and chaos and efforts into other things, which has been completely fun. But I also realized that, you know, you can only play for so long. And I've been joking for the last couple of days with like friends and family about how, okay, so I've been playing, but I need to like go do my homework, right? I need to make sure that I'm in a good space so that I can do the things that I need to do. And, you know, tarot and working on myself as, you know, personal growth practice, and, you know, spirituality and all that kind of stuff, that helps me be a better me, which helps me be able to do and to give and to offer other people those parts of myself. And so it's important for me to recognize when I've hit the wall with that, because I need to take a step back and kind of reevaluate and take a breath, and then I can come back and kind of hit it again with this sort of fresh perspective. And that's kind of where I've been. That's a space I've been in. And so I don't really have any point to this video other than to come on and say, you know, like, this is where I'm at. If you are here, have been here, like, I just want to like validate that experience for you, because sometimes we just need somebody else to see it, right? To acknowledge it, so that we can acknowledge it for ourselves. Then once I kind of acknowledge that this is a thing that I'm going through, then I can work on how do I get through this thing. Just needed a little bit of a break from them, right? I mean, I have other things that are important to me. I have other projects that I'm working on. I have a whole other channel that's getting ready to have a whole lot of stuff dumped on it. And that's been really fun. But this is kind of like my core. This is kind of like my anchor. My tarot practice has been that for a really long time. And so it's important for me that I honor that, but it's also important for me that I acknowledge when it becomes a hindrance rather than a help. And when it becomes a hindrance, then I just usually need a break. That's all it is. I need to take a step back. I need to get out of the weeds so that I can see the bigger picture again. And so I just thought I'd come on and share that with you all, because like, that's a part of my journey and that's what we do here. So anyway, I would love to know if any of you have ever experienced, like, you know, tarot burnout or tarot overwhelm, whatever you want to call it. To me, those are two very different things, which is why I've made separate videos on them, because one is just like, oh my goodness, there's all this stuff and like I do really want to engage with it all, but I'm just like flat overwhelmed by it. Whereas tarot burnout is like, I don't want to, man. I just don't even want to engage with it right now. You know, that is me going, it's not a matter of like adjusting playlists or using different decks. It is a matter of literally taking a step back and saying, I need a break, which I have done for the last few weeks. So hopefully now I will be at this point where I can step back into my practice and, you know, begin to engage with those things in a way that is meaningful again, because I don't want to just go through the motions. That's not what I want my tarot practice to be. I don't want it to be brushing my teeth. So it was important for me to acknowledge that that's where it was starting to head, or really that's where it had been for a little while. And so now that I've acknowledged that, I've kind of worked through that. I'm, you know, hopefully going to be able to just step back into it, and I don't want to say really pick up where I left off, but kind of like pick up where I left off. I'm going to be making changes because it's a new year and I have new things that I want to do, but in a sense, pick up where I left off of my tarot practice being, you know, an anchor in my life that kind of just helps me stay rooted into who I am amidst the chaos that is life, and amidst the chaos that I personally tend to create because I'm all over the place all the time. Y'all, it's a hot mess in my brain all the time. And tarot kind of helps me focus that, right? It gives me something to focus on, to work through. You know, it's a language that I can use to kind of express things, as well as kind of a conduit into that self-reflective, that sort of inner self speak, right? All the wonderful things that we use tarot for. So anyway, let me know if you've experienced this sort of tarot burnout before, and, you know, if you've found anything that's been helpful for you, definitely share in the comments below so we can, you know, all chat about it and help each other. I'm not going anywhere. Still going to be sharing all my stuff here. Just needed a little bit of a break. So thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to sharing with you again soon.